Hello, my name is James McLachlan, editor of Car Design News, and I'm here with Chris Bangle. Some of you may know, who is founder of Chris Bangle Associates Design Studio. Nice to speak to you,
Oh, I'm
Chris.
my mark. I have to stand back here.
Yeah.
No, I'm back here. Don't worry.
Make sure you're on the mark.
You don't want you too close to you, do they?
No,
You're outside of arm's reach.
It's almost like we're back in COVID times.
I think so.
Like the motor show itself, we're here at Geneva. It's, I have to say, a little thin on the ground in terms of brands, if I'm being kind. Where do you see it going from here? Because I feel like we need these shows. I spoke to you earlier about the importance of meeting up, the idea of riffing on each other, creativity.
Yeah, it was really nice. You give a talk on that.
Yeah.
Super important.
Well, where next, I guess? What do we do?
Well, I think you guys are like one of the last bastions of a culture of car design. Seriously. The Geneva Motor Show was always, let's say, our hometown as car designers. Okay, Detroit really good. Don't want to take anything away from that. Frankfurt had a few moments as well too, and so Paris perhaps, but seriously, when the car designer guys got together, it was always Geneva, Café de Paris, the whole 9 yards. And your team was here and celebrated that, interior motives, all this kind of stuff. Always had for us the moment of the meet. And when you meet, you talk, you exchange, you get to feel like we're a culture, there's other people with the same issues you have. Nobody talks business, but everybody talks culture. And only in that way we are a culture. And without that, I seriously wonder, what is the future of car design without a culture of people behind it? I don't mind tools like AI, stuff like that, fantastic. But it takes real people, and the real people have to know they're not alone.
I mentioned earlier as well the idea of the mono volume, and it sort of re-emerging from China. I'm thinking of the Zeekr 009, but you mentioned, of course, being a very literate design historian, I guess, in some ways. Patrick Lecamon had probably had something to say about that.
Yeah, probably. I mean, he certainly tried to explore every avenue of the monovolume that was possible, right down to a sports vehicle, right? And things like that. Okay, it's good to see come back. Kind of an interesting issue is, even in a time where Patrick was leading his teams back then, I mean, it was kind of the tail end maybe, but you could still create a new, let's say, category of vehicles, right? It seems like now people don't want to make a new category. So if you try to do something outside the norm, it's just weird. It's not a new category, like monovolume, wow, a new category, I mean, think of the Volkswagen microbus when that was introduced in the 60s or something like that in America.
It's amazing.
People just say, it's a new category, a minibus, right?
Yeah.
Okay, instead of saying, well, that's just weird, right? And now you have to work against that just weirdness.
Do you think there's a timidity that's crept in a little bit? I don't know, it's hard to say, and I don't want to be too sort of retro, things were better, or people were more, interested in taking risks, but it feels like there is a bit of a risk-averse culture that sometimes creeps in.
Yeah, I mean, without a doubt, let's say the margins of success are a lot thinner now. The room for error is a lot thinner now. The stakes are higher. The playing field is far more crowded. And so this idea that you have to try things out to establish a sense of freshness of where you're going with this. I mean, in the 60s or something like that, we were at an exhibition of Michelotis, Michelotti from the 50s and 60s, right? You look at the number of cars that this guy did, the sheer raw number of cars, right? And I was looking at it and somebody said, what was the guiding philosophy? And I said, the guiding philosophy is you could do no wrong because there was no right. There was no right. It wasn't like, well, that's what it is. No, you try anything. There was no right, so you could do no wrong. And now we have, it has to be right, aerodynamics are this, the safety is this, has to be this, has to be this, until the point where you're so hemmed in, the fear of failure is at every single corner. And how can designers learn with that? How can they learn?
Yeah, and I think there's nothing that stifles creativity quite like fear. I don't know if you were ever aware of the Brian Eno, the card game that he invented, and that gave you took a draw from the deck and it would give you a parameter that you couldn't break. And it was, I can't remember what they used to call it, but the name of the card game. But now it feels like that whole 52 card deck is a set of parameters.
Yeah. That doesn't matter which card you take.
Yeah.
There is no free cards. But I don't know, I think a lot of the edges are fear factors. They're in our designer heads. We say, no, we don't do this, we don't do that. Now we're using AI tools which are language-based, so if we don't put the words in, they're not going to take the words out.
Yeah,
are we introducing new words? Not really sure about that.
Yeah.
So, I mean, it kind of depends on us to foresee our own future. We have to do better than the past, which was to just try until you got a future. Now we got to think so far forward that we could say, let's embed this now, and we're going to reap the rewards later, but we're not really sure how.
Chris, it's always fascinating to speak to you. Thanks so much for sparing some time.
Thanks so much. Thanks so much, Dave.